there's some things about the practice that would be very useful to go through in specific detail instead of just somebody leading. And that's true for everybody who's even been leading, that there's some things that we haven't covered yet that would be just good refreshers, because you're all going to be guiding yourself by, about 2 days from now or more, maybe even starting today. And also some things, I have no idea how much that was said in the orientation in general, but there are just things about retreat that Venerable Children always reminds us of every year. I know that you said some things in the in your BBC, and also then to bring it in here again, so that we're creating a retreat environment together that supports everybody, and also doing a practice that, although it's really quite simple, because there's so much flexibility, it can also be really kind of confusing. So I want to take the opportunity to go through that in step-by-step detail and show you where you can flex and where you shouldn't flex. And that will help, I think, help people guide themselves. Okay. And then any questions that people already have, I'm happy to do. I don't want this to go on and on and on, but we'll see how that turns out. It's not my intention. Let's put it that way. So let's just start with, again, bringing yourself present here. And setting our motivation. I was just writing the opening for the e-news in December, and just noting it's true that the Abbey ourselves have had some pretty interesting obstacles in the last few months, pretty big ones actually. And I'm sure whatever people came to, whatever shape, whatever it took to get you into retreat, you've all had some obstacles in the last few months. It's the nature of samsara. And yet, in writing about it, in the context of the wars that are going on in this world right now, the natural disasters that are happening in this world right now, the famine that's going on in the world right now, doing Tonglen with these incidences puts everything in perspective. And we can think about how fortunate, how precious this time is, and just unbelievably fortunate we are to be here to do this in the midst of so much suffering in the world. So to take that situation and use that as the fuel, use that to really inspire our practice, so that, not with any grandiose idea that we're going to come out of retreat and end the war in Ukraine, or, solve the Israeli-Palestine problem, but to know that the virtue we create has benefit right now for ourselves and others, and that the seeds we're planting with a long-term view will guide us steadily towards our commitment to be able to help liberate every being from the causes of wars, famine, and even results of natural disasters. Make that the real focus of our practice this whole retreat, and even this very informal session. So I'm sure we've already mentioned this a few times, that when we talk about retreat means retreating from the afflictions. So it doesn't matter how many mantra you say, or how much even you don't say a word to anybody. If our mind is still raging, then we're not really in retreat. So everything that we do is supporting everything, that the whole retreat structure is to support that retreat from the afflictions and developing the virtuous mind states. That's what the purpose of the retreat is, to accumulate positive energy among these things, to create merit, And we're retreating the causes for enlightenment. We're in retreat to create the causes for enlightenment and to do that with a bodhicitta motivation. So that's inspiring. Well, that keeps us on the mark. And the causes of enlightenment don't come from having our judgmental minds, having our cranky minds, having our... So that's what we learn to work with. It's not that they won't come up, they totally will. Guaranteed, absolutely. Because once we're silent and everything is the same every day, or it's not the same every day, which is irritating. I mean, everything is irritating, right? Everything. Let's just admit it. But we can work with that. We have the time and the space and the luxury to work with that. So that's what the purpose of retreat is, to work with our mind, to generally deepen our understanding of the Buddhist path, and to, yeah, that's it. And what a luxury. So good to review the purposes, and then in order to achieve that, there are some things that need to come into place. So we really need to show up. That's one of the important guidelines, is to the best of our ability, show up for every session that you're scheduled for. If you're just ill and spraying, germs all over everybody, okay. But if you can wear a mask and still sit up comfortably, show up. The continuity of this practice builds session by session by session by session. So if we're a little tired and don't show up, you not only miss the continuity of that, but you also create the habit of giving up when you're a little bit tired. The Venerable Children actually used to be much more strict about us doing this with our daily practice. The rule originally was, unless you're throwing up or have a fever, you come. Now, that was criticized for some level of harshness, I will say, but I personally am very happy that that is the guideline I trained under, because her point was, when you die, you will be throwing up. When you die, you will have a fever. And when you have created the habit of, oh, I'm too tired to go to the hall, I'm not going to go today, that habit's also part of what's in your mind. So, it sounds strict, and I'm not being like about it, but to cultivate the habit of consistency, where your practice is the thing that you never give up on and that you always show up for, really gives us a chance to work with difficulties on the cushion. And when we work with difficulties on the cushion, then we are better prepared to work with difficulties in our life. So that said, if you can't come up, you're too sick or you're too whatever, it really doesn't work to come. That's also understandable. It's not like there's, we're not going to go pull you out of bed like we used to do. We're not going to do that. But it is super helpful if you tell somebody. Otherwise, they will come knocking on your door and find out, just to check on you, make sure you're okay. So leave a note, make sure somebody knows, and do your best, especially during retreat. Do your best to get to the cushion for the sessions that you are assigned to do. Now, some people in the community are offering service during this time, so there won't be a full complement in the hall all the time. Most people, I think, will be doing the 2:45 session, and sometimes offering service meetings with the Buddha Hall and whatever will even conflict with that. So those who are offering service, do your best to make up that third session, but as best we can, make that 2:45 session the standard session for everybody, okay? If you have to leave the hall, I think it's already been said a few times, but it's good to be reminded that if you have to leave the hall in the middle of a session, don't come back. And if you have to leave the hall in the middle of the session, the malas that you have recited, those don't count. So it's good to stick around if you can. If you can. It's all could be made up. Keeping the silence, I want to also address a little bit. Why do we do this? I mean, it may be kind of obvious. If we're looking at building a retreat environment where we can really, what is Buddhist practice? Buddhist practice is transforming our mind. And all the stuff we do throughout the day, throughout our lives, that is totally about distracting the mind, prevents us from looking in. So the silence is part of the really the boundary that holds us to our intention to work on our transforming our mind. And silence does not just mean not talking. You can do an amazing note frenzy, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth at our dining room table. Right here, you write my note, write my note, write my note. It's like texting in the old way, right? So this too is breaking silence. If you really need to leave a note, that's fine. Tuck it under somebody's napkin at the table where they're sitting, and we try to hold this. If you get a note, don't read it at the table. Take it somewhere else. I'll tell you a story. In the first retreat I did, long retreat I did, Venerable Seppel was there, and some of our Dharma friends, Leah, people that we know were there. There was one occasion where it's an amazing story. So we were sitting there or all eating. The people in my room actually kept silence very, very well. But sort of the end of retreat, as I remember this, we were watching the snow come down. It was maybe a mealtime, and someone took a photo of someone staring out at the snow. When someone heard that click, she thought the photo had been taken of her. It had not. It had been taken of someone else. But she thought the photo had been taken of her, and she was furious. She kind of exploded in silence and went upstairs and everybody's looking like, what? So then we're having the meal, and just as the meal starts, she comes down the stairs, throws a note in front of the person at the table who had taken the photograph. The person at the table burst into tears, and the whole room is just like, right? Total silence. Nobody said a word. So there's so many things about this story that illustrates in retreat, our minds go whack, right? That photo, I mean, it was an innocent, natural thing to do. It was beautiful. Silhouette, snow falling, okay. She didn't ask permission, okay. But it wasn't even the person that was photographed that was having the problem, right? But okay. Immediately our stories come up and we run. We run. This person's rage completely affected the whole room. And that silent note on the table, which a person kind of innocently opened at dinner, why not? Well, there's just chain reactions of reactions. So I think in the end it all turned out okay. I don't even remember, but as an illustration of how the silence can be broken in complete silence, this is just a great illustration. So if you can, take the notes outside. We've tried that before. If we remember, it helps. And the other thing about the silence is that, of course, it doesn't mean that you can't. Don't take it so literally that you don't ask for aspirin if you need it, right? That you don't tell somebody you twisted your ankle if you did. I mean, it's noble silence, as Venerable Seppel explained, which means we do what needs to be done. But the caveat of that is we need to pay attention to whether we actually need to ask how much soap do you want in the dish. Do you want in the bucket to make, right? Do we really need to ask that question? Just squirt. If it's not enough, somebody will squirt some more. It's okay. So we work with that. Hand gestures too. So we're just mindful. Just mindful of how we communicate. Okay, let's talk about the practice. I don't suppose anybody brought their... No, didn't think about that. I didn't think to ask for it either. So I want to talk about structuring the session, and there's some things about the practice that we haven't covered. So is all that clear? Are there any other questions about that? It just needs... Okay. One thing about the visualization that I have yet to remember to mention I don't even have the card in here. You know, the way the cards are, the way the tanka is, it has all these kind of rows out in space, which if you're going to do a 2D thing, that's how it's going to be. But in your visualization, it's actually all on the same level. It's all on the same plane. So you don't have to have these various things floating out in space, but more like all around a central throne, which may be easier or may not be easier, I don't know. But that's generally the guideline of how we do that. And it is a very detailed visualization, there's no question about it. And there is the simpler version that's in the text. I really encourage you to try to do the whole thing, not as a major, not trying to get it all in detail. If that makes your head hurt, then okay. But our real wish is to get this feeling of being in the presence of this whole refuge field. It isn't just Shakyamuni Buddha. It is the emanation, the appearance is all these other Buddhas as well. It is the Bodhisattvas. It is the solitary realizers and here arhats. And it is the text, and it is our spiritual mentors. Like, it's a huge crowd. And to be able to feel like we're in the presence of that huge crowd, every single being of which progressed, is interested or engaged or willing to guide us on the path to become like them. That's a very mind-expanding idea. So even if it's don't get hung up on the detail. To the extent that you can, we'll cultivate that over time. But more importantly, this idea of being in the presence of all these Buddhas, because as Venerable said many times in the teachings, I watched so many versions of her teaching this thing in the last while. Our purpose with this particular practice is to cultivate our relationship with Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and spiritual mentors. And the deeper our relationship with each of these aspects, of course, the deeper our practice and the more kind of committed we are. We're in the practice of cultivating our convictional faith. Remember we talked on the first day about the 3 kinds of faith, the admiring faith, the aspiring faith. And this, Venerable says really clearly, is about cultivating the conviction that we have in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha to guide us. And the more we learn about what refuge is in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and we see that the whole path is contained here, then that conviction just grows and our confidence grows. So that's the value of giving yourself the space to do a big visualization, even if it's not really there. Okay, even if you just say the words, you know they're there. And then you do what you can with the visualization in your mind. Does that make sense? Yeah. Someone asked, can I put Chenrezig in the center? No. Chenrezig's in that circle of meditational deities. Buddha Shakyamuni is really the embodiment of the Buddha of this era who's brought us the Dharma now. Brought us the Dharma. We're the ones that have the karma to be here now. So that's the position that Buddha Shakyamuni holds. And as you think about Buddha, and we begin to see that every single one of them has the same realizations, they just appear in these different forms. So it's not, it's not like, oh, well, I only love Tara. Sorry, the rest of you guys. They're all Buddha, small b Buddha. And that's important for us to know and understand. Okay. Quote from Venerable Children: Buddha is your best friend. Build a good relationship so you can always rely on the refuge field. So if our first impulse is, I used to call my mother. She's gone now. But I always knew I was in trouble, and I really used her, I have to admit, that when push comes to shove, when all else failed, I would call my mom. And I only called her once a month or so. But that's when I called her. Honey, what's wrong? Oh, nothing. I'm just tired. And then she talked for a while. She talked the whole time. And then I'd feel better because I knew my mother loved me, right? Buddha Dharma Sangha. Buddha Dharma Sangha is the place to go. Okay, where to put the mantra recitation? Since I threw in a curveball this morning. There are those two places to do the mantra recitation in the sadhana. Right at the beginning, as I did this morning, is the way we have done it a few times we've done this retreat. And the reason I did it this morning is this is for the advanced practitioners only, okay, this particular piece I'm about to say. But we got guidance from Venerable Children that if you are doing 6-session Guru Yoga, you can do this visualization, do the mantra recitation, and then complete your 6-session from there, not using the Buddha meditation. So that will be a relief for people who have that commitment and need to get this, want to incorporate that into your practice. So is that clear? Do you need any more direction than that? Yeah. So that's, run it by you again. Yeah, okay. So you would do whatever you do for the motivation, which we'll come back to. Do the visualization. No, this one. Do this visualization. Yeah. Then do your mantra recitation from there. You take refuge there. And then once that refuge is complete, you complete your 6-session practice. Yeah. Keeping this visualization, but that it dissolves into you, right? So, yeah, you get it. What's the second line? Oh, we all have different translations anyway, but until enlightenment I go for refuge, you'd start there, right, with that very first line, after you've done the Namo Guruvya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, whichever one you're going to do. And, that's enough to be said about that. If, for other people who are newer and don't have that commitment, if it feels more comfortable or natural for you to do that recitation at the very beginning, that's okay too. The value of doing it the way we have been practicing it during the teaching is that you get all the preliminary practices in, which Venerable Tarpa is going to be giving us some talks on through the next little while, so that it's built in that we have our 7-limb prayer, we do our 4 immeasurables, we do our mandala offering, all that's built into the way we've been doing it in the weekly teachings. So use that formula or that structure, unless it makes you crazy and you want to do the Namo Guruvya where it's written at the beginning. Okay, it's just permission for people, because this practice is complicated because it's so flexible. That's what makes it difficult. And it's fantastic because it actually makes us tailor it to the way our own minds work. It's actually very beneficial if we get used to it. Okay. So then, Yeah, please do.
Just to keep in mind that typically in a sadhana or a practice, we do those preliminaries to help us accumulate merit that will then support the main practice. So that is the logic behind actually going through it all the way up to the place where it says do the recitation. But either way is okay, like you're saying.
Yeah, either way is okay. But especially if this is your first time through, or I think it's good to do it the way we have been doing it for that very reason. And it gives us a little more structure. Because if you're not so concentrated in the very first thing, then we can spend a lot of time in the practice. You can spend the whole session kind of wandering around. Well, what should I do for my motivation? Oh, I could be motivated by this. I could be motivated by that. I'm supposed to make lunch. I'm supposed to be, blah, blah. So it'll help keep us on track to do it that way. Okay, then where to put your lam rim? People keep asking, where are we going to do the Four Noble Truths? Four truths known by the Aryas. Well, there are many places. You can do it at the beginning as a part of your motivation, or as your motivation, thinking about the four truths. You can stop after you do the visualization and think about stuff there. Ideally, after the visualization, you would be meditating on the qualities of the refuge object that you are about to meditate on, or do the mantra for. Right? So you do the visualization. We're going to do a whole week on Buddha and meditate there on the qualities of the Buddha. There are so many different lists. There are so many different beautiful poems about and praise of Buddha. There's so many resources, and I'm sure they're all in the Kuan Yin room somewhere out here. So many resources on the qualities of the Buddha. That's super useful to meditate on. So you could do that after the visualization before you start the mantra. You could wait, do the mantra, and reflect on that after you've done the mantra. And then go when we start doing the refuge and bodhicitta prayer, that comes next. You could do it, then you could do the whole thing, get to the mandala offering, and then stop and do your reflection in the normal, quote, normal lamrim spot before the dissolution. Or you could dissolve the Buddha into yourself and even do it at the end. Many, many, many places. So I don't want to give you so many that it's confusing, but also I don't want to limit people. So think about it. When you look at this, go through the practice outline and look at where you would logically want to stop and think about, what did I just say? What did I just do? Why am I taking refuge in the Buddha? Why am I taking refuge in the Dharma? What is the Dharma? Think about it. I'm going to take refuge in the Dharma, therefore I'm going to reflect on the Four Truths. Right? So there are all these places that you can do this with this practice. Does that make it more complicated? No. Is that clear for people? Is that doable for people? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Is it fine to switch it up? Is it okay to switch it up from session to session, that it might feel better to put that analytical meditation in these different places, so it's not needing to always, I don't need to find where it's going to fit for the next few weeks, but kind of in each session determine what is the most beneficial place for me?
Yeah. The thing that's really precious about retreat is you have time. You have 5 sessions. You can stop and do you can spend a whole day just making each step of the Lam Rim, of the succession, sorry. No. No, the 7 limb prayer. All day, you could do one whole session where your reflection, you stop at the first limb, and that's your meditation for this session. And then you go on. Next session, stop at the second limb. That's your meditation for that. That's your analytic meditation for that session. You can do that. And that's juicy. It's precious. Why is that 7 limb prayer there? What does it mean? Why am I doing this? Why is this a preliminary practice? What does this mean for Dharma? So much flexibility there. And all of it is rich if you stay on your topic. Now, if you get so jumpy mind that you get, I'm going to, nope, 7 limbs, that wasn't so smart. Here on the same session, I'm going to go, well, maybe I should do something about the Buddha. A few minutes on the Buddha. No, the Buddha's not going to work for me today. Maybe I should do something else. That's what I don't want to open the door to. But I do know that you all have enough practice, most of you have enough practice to be able to discern things that you want to delve into. And now, I was going to get to study later, but Venerable Children also emphasized many, many times in different ways for this teaching, do your study on objects of refuge or the Four Truths. Confine it. This is not the time to go out and start studying, oh, I'm going to do Dzogchen this time, or, oh, I always wanted to read about the lives of the cities. No. We have a focused topic. And to do it slowly, learning the Dharma is not like learning an academic subject. We don't get points for the number of books we read. But if we slowly go through just a couple of books, a couple of resources, and think about them and take that into your session and let what you learn as you read these books become the points of your analytic meditation, then you really ingest it deeply. So everything, it's so much, this whole way of being in retreat, it's like everything we do outside, we bring into our cushion. And then we do our experiences on the cushion, then it comes back out into how we're living in retreat. If we can hold it, we have to kind of all be in agreement to support each other to hold it in that way. But that's the richness. And then it doesn't matter if you're in the offering service time or if you're in the full-time cushion time. You're holding that same big space wherein you are kind of focused on our topic together as a group. Okay, so you have to go write the e-news. That's okay. But if I can take that mind into my offering service, then I'm still in retreat. And I don't have to complain about it, that they got more retreat time than I did. How come I don't? Is that retreating from the afflictions? Zero, not. And that way we support each other to stay in retreat. Yeah? Yeah. Okay. Question, yes.
Well, can I split the Lamrim into like two parts, which is like motivation for the first two truths, and then after I did the confidence, and then I meditate on the last two truths?
Now, from what I just said, what do you think? Yes. Yeah. Do it where it makes sense. Yeah? Yeah. So of course, if we're looking at, for example, if we're looking at using the Four Truths as our motivation, and we know that the causes for taking refuge are shock, horror at psychic existence itself, then sure, doing those first two truths really helps motivate the mind to go into practice. And then you can either do this reflection, and then what? And then I'm going to turn to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha because I know their qualities. Or we turn to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and then visualize them, and then rejoice in those qualities. Or sure, that's totally fine. That's totally fine. And it's a good illustration, actually, for what I mean. Yeah.
So but what about, it seemed like you were separating where the analytical meditation goes and where we're reciting the actual refuge mantra. And I know the instructions describe, first doing that purification visualization, but then with the golden light, could that be a place where we also maybe do that analytical meditation on what are the qualities of the refuge object as we say the mantra?
Sure. And also, there's a whole list of questions that came with it. That's how to think about while you're reciting the mantra. Now, how does that work? Well, our concentration may be absolutely on the mark, that you can just concentrate for the whole 40 minutes it takes to get the numbers that you want. But it may not. So when your mind gets tired from, well, it doesn't have to be that, doesn't even have to be the reason. You can do it either way. But if you've got a really clear visualization of the light and you're doing the recitation and then it starts to waver, it is, once you get in the rhythm of that mantra, then we all know we can think about something else besides the mantra when we're reciting mantra. We all have that experience, right? So let's be intentional about what else we think about. we look at those questions that Venerable's laid out there, and you think about those instead of what you're going to make for lunch tomorrow. And so that's totally how we use it. Yeah. So this is, we've said this many times too, this analogy, but it is in retreat where we really learn about our own minds and we learn to doctor our own minds. And the toolkits that we had, the medicine kit is vast, really vast. And that's one of the things that we can do to keep ourselves in the retreat, keep our mind focused. Focus. And I also want to say, too, that we're not deliberately spending X amount of time watching our breath as concentration meditation in this sadhana, although you can. You certainly can. In order to do the mantra recitation numbers, which I'll get to in a minute, you need to spend a fair amount of time doing mantra recitation. That's really the focus. And that is also a place for concentration. That's a really wonderful way of developing concentration, to keeping your mind on that mantra, keeping your mind on that visualization. Super, super, super good way to do concentration. Okay. No, but that's a really good idea. That is a really good idea. I wasn't planning to. Yeah. So let's talk about mantra recitation since I already got there. Is there something else I wanted to say before we do? There's many aspects to it with this. What did I do with that mala I borrowed? Does everybody have some means of counting their? Yeah, okay. So, first of all, the counting has a real purpose. The 111,000 recitations of 111, 111, 1,000, 100, anyway, 111 dash, comma, 111 recitations of each of these aspects is meaningful. If it makes you crazy, if all you do is the math every session, then reasonably relax your mind and just recite mantra. I have a different kind of mind. I will say for myself, who tend to give up, discouragement is a big thing in kind of my mind, and I'm also extremely lazy. If I'm committed to 111,111 of the entire thing, then that commitment keeps me on the cushion. It also keeps my mind from wandering off. It's way easier somehow for me, it's way easier to do analytical meditation than it is to keep my mind focused on the mantra. And that number really keeps me in shape. But that, people have different personalities. Yeah.
How do you count that number when you're thinking that mantra?
So.
I count 108 because there are 108 beats, but that's about it.
Right. So here's some methods. Venerable Children taught this one. I think I'm the only person that uses it, but I love this. She has a little pile of beans. And with every time you finish a mala, you click a bean from one side to the other side of under your puja table. You finish your malas, bean, bean, bean. You can even decide how many you want to do per session and just do that many beans, but be flexible. At the end of the session, you count up. Oh, look, I did 10 beans. Then you put your little 10 on a piece of paper and you're done for the session. Yeah, 10 malas. And then you do the math at the end, so you know what that is. Some people have counters on their malas that I can't do those. I can't explain them. I don't understand them. So if somebody who does can do that. I never know remember which direction I went, but how else do people do it? Yeah. Yeah. The danger with that is if you hit the wrong button, it wipes everything out. For clumsy people, it's not a good idea. I've done it. But they do work. Paper, just mark a paper every time you finish a mala, you do a piece of paper mark. Yeah, that works. That works. That works. So we have note paper here in the back. We can probably grab a handful of pens or pencils and make sure people have them. But you can't. But that's why having the mala, Jason. That's why having the mala is helpful, because you get that guaranteed 108. Make sure your mala is 108. They aren't all exactly perfect. So that's a way of counting it. Yeah.
It might be nice and slow to go on, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. But as the retreat goes on, you'll get a lot faster. So you might put two on one bead. You know, you say Namo Buddhaya as you go up the bead and Namo Buddhaya as you come down the bead. Then you're doing two malas at the same time. You can do 4, 2 up, 2 down. You can do any number, actually.
What do you mean up and down?
I'll show you.
Because I was going to talk about a whole other way of doing it that way.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, this is one way it was described to me. Like, okay, so there's one bead there. I would say Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. So I'm doing 2 as I'm going up the bead, and I'm doing 2 as I go down the bead. So I do 4 malas at once. It saves your thumb.
Oh. Yeah, up and down.
I'm just, as I'm going, like, as I'm moving that bead, I'm saying Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. It's
So-
just up and down as I'm moving the bead. See, I'm moving the bead.
Can I show you
Rolling the beat.
what I was
Yes,
planning
of
to do
course.
with the 4?
Sure.
I just go Namo Guruvya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmya, Namo Sangya, Namo Guruvya, Namo Buddhaya,
Do
Namo.
that too.
Yeah, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. People can't hear it, huh? Oh yeah, I don't need that. Either one. If it helps you to do the feeling about that, that's fine. Or maybe it's just musically it's rhythmic. Namo Buddhaya, 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 Namo Buddhaya. That's 4. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. So you can do, and it does save your thumb, especially for those of us who are getting a little bit older. It gets painful quickly if we're doing it this quick. So yeah, I never knew this about the up-down thing. So anyway, the point of all that, people's different methods, is you don't have to do one recitation per bead. You can figure out the math and do 2 or 3 is not as easy, but 4. And probably no more than 4. I don't know. Depends on how much you can hold in your head. Yeah, I'll come back to that. All right, so do a sustained number of each one for each session is what Venerable Chödrön said. So you can do, like what we've been talking about is doing one refuge object at a time, which is really her basic instruction. Because that gives us a chance to really go in depth in our meditation on the qualities of the Buddha, the qualities of the Dharma, qualities of the Sangha, qualities of the spiritual mentor, or relationship with the spiritual mentor. But you can also just say, I'm going to do 4 malas of the Buddha, 4 malas of the Dharma, 4 malas of the Sangha, 4 malas of the spiritual mentor in each session. So you can do that too. Or you can do the whole big thing. Namo Guruvya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmya, Namo Sangha. And Venerable Chödrön did say do a few of those, more probably at the beginning of the session, at the end, but do a few of those. And she didn't define few, so that we still get the complete refuge formula in the session. Right? So a lot of variety. That makes sense. The thing about the 100,000 is that they say it gives you the chance to do one with concentration, perfectly focused. So whoever wrote that instruction knows our minds. Yeah, so then, Venerable Sepul, why don't you talk to us about the...
Just that it's one analogy for the retreat is to think of it like the shape of a seed, that you start slowly and you build up to the middle of the retreat. That's when you're doing the most mantras. And then as we get towards the end of the retreat, we also begin doing fewer mantras, fewer recitations, so that it's balanced. We don't rush at the beginning to do too many. That can shock the mind. We work our way into, let it be natural, like see how many you naturally want to recite. And also you might have to encourage yourself if you're only here for 3 weeks. But you can also finish it at home too.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be all finished here. And then maybe the last 3 days, 4 days of the retreat, you just start doing a little bit less and relaxing your mind a bit more, maybe doing more analytic meditation, like that. So that's what I know.
Yeah. Yeah, especially at the start. I mean, towards the end, if you've been sort of really enjoying it, you may need to step it up. But hopefully we stay relaxed. That's really what that does. And to trust. I know some people have said, even at home, how can I possibly do 100,000 things? But you do one at a time. That's how we do it, one at a time, at the rate that works for you. And this Ngondro does not have to be finished on this cushion. It's nice if you can, but just keep doing it. But what you do have to do is do it every day. You have to keep the succession going. Miss a day and we start over. And I don't know that this is so strict because it's not a tantric retreat, but generally, if you need to do one session on your cushion to be able to keep the succession going. The succession, not succession, succession going. Yeah, but it does naturally speed up. It doesn't help to sit down, calculate how many you have to do per session, and start off from the start. It doesn't help. In fact, it just makes you tight. So relax into it, enjoy it. Those of us who will be doing this for some months, some of us for 4, some of you for just 2 or 2.5, but you still have plenty of time. I know for a fact this can be done in 3 weeks. I've done it. And the luxury of being able to extend it is delicious, really. It's fabulous. Anything else about the oh, I know what else I wanted to talk about. There's the description of this visualization that is in the sadhana. It says there are different ways to visualize the flow of light and nectar from the holy body in front of you. So Venerable Children, I don't know who wrote it. I'm assuming Venerable Children at least borrowed this. There is a pipe made of light and nectar flows through it into you. If you are inclined to being into pipes, that might work. There is a wire made of light and the drops of nectar run along it, running into you. It's a nice image. And then there is a rain of light and nectar, which for me is just easier to deal with. But there are these other options. If the rain is too much, or just you can have it come more gently down this little wire into your heart. Okay. Any other questions about the sadhana or how to? Yeah.
One time when you were teaching, you said you started with visualizing rainbows of light instead of white or golden. Is there a meaning behind that, and can we still do that?
You know what's interesting? It says here in the directions, 5-colored light, somewhere in the visualization. And that's what I was reading from. Yeah, is that where it is? Spiritual mentor. And then the rest of it, all the other instructions say white and golden. So I'm assuming 5-colored light can become white, and also this is taken from. I don't know if this is a direct adaptation, but this is generally a tantric preliminary practice, and I wonder if some of the artifacts from that have remained in here sometimes. So I don't know. But the white light consistently across all our practices is the purifying light. And the golden light is the one that brings realizations. Speaking of purifying, did you or did we pass out the things to purify during the practice? There's a sheet. There's a detailed sheet. No? Did I printed it. Did I bring it over? Maybe I didn't. Yeah, it's right here. Then we should make sure everybody has it. It's a front back page of things to purify while you're doing this refuge. Things that we've done in relation to the Guru, things we've done in relation to the Buddha, things we've done in relation to the Dharma, and things we've done in relation to the Sangha. Oh, it's a condensed version of this. Okay, okay. This is useful. Let's see if we can make it available to people. Because we're not so aware of the negativities we've done in relationship to the three jewels. I mean, the 10 non-virtuous actions, we know. We know what we aren't always aware of those either. But this is, to visualize taking refuge in worldly God. I mean, purify taking refuge in worldly gods, or putting things on top of our Dharma books that we're kind of careless with. Even our glasses or even our mala actually is not respecting the Dharma in that book, which we do so casually. Criticizing other Buddhist traditions, for example. So easy to just let something out of our, a thought become something out of our mouth. And, when these kinds of obstacles show up in, when we fall asleep during teachings, when we can't stay awake during the sessions, when we have resistance to certain aspects of the teachings, or certain things just don't make sense to us. That's a result of karmic. It's a karmic result, right? And what we're purifying when we're doing our purification of these things with regard to the three jewels is wiping that mind clearer and cleaner, so that we have better access. We can practice better. We can stay sharper, and then we can also continue to have relationships with these beings in the future. What else is on that list that you can think of? I mean, not the list, but the results. Karmic results of. Yeah, just not understanding the Dharma. And I would say, when we're looking at the Dharma, abandoning the Dharma, saying that something is the Buddha's teachings when it isn't, criticizing any aspect of the other practices, talking about the Buddha, not teaching points of the Dharma that you don't agree with, or not accepting those points. We're also creating the causes not to meet the Dharma in the future, right? Or we're creating obstacles to meeting Dharma, not to meet the Dharma in the future.
Venerable, for instance, like sometimes in the mind, I have selection of teachers that I like. I like this teacher present on this, but don't like this teacher present on this. Or I like the vast, I don't like the profound. So that's actually the obstacles that I create for myself that need to be purified as well.
Absolutely, because you need them both. You can't get anywhere if you only do bodhicitta, and you can't become a Buddha if you only do wisdom. You have to have them both. So things like that. And there's something that just popped into my head about that. Oh, I know. I heard Yangtze Rinpoche once saying that one of his students, they were leaving a talk, and one of his students had said, Rinpoche, when you said this was really great, but this aspect that you taught, you really need to do this differently. You need to be better at. Rinpoche, I think he said, I didn't say anything to my student, but he said, don't do that. That's criticize. I mean, so what you're saying about the teachers, like every word they say, every word of Dharma that comes to us is precious. And when we've studied and really taken this into our heart, we know that's true. And the skill of the teacher is not the issue. Really. And so especially to be critical of our own teacher and their style and their presentation and so forth creates really obstacles in our mind. So yeah, we need to purify that and purify those, purify the results of those. Yeah.
And that part sounds a little heavy, and so whenever you have a little aha in your practice, all of a sudden something clicks, also think that that's karma.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
yeah.
we balance out.
Oh yes, of course. Sorry, thank you. I always go to that side. Fundamentalist training. Yeah.
The Four Truths. I don't know you have had at a glance things for other topics. What I'm thinking, knowing me, I'll just sit there and go,
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure we can come up with something. And you know, the Venerable Children's Lam Rim book has meditations on the Four Truths.
yeah, I didn't bring one, and I didn't want to take
Yeah.
a book over to the meditation hall.
Yeah, and also anything in the middle scope meditations, anything on the, sufferings of cyclic existence, the different lists of the sufferings of cyclic existence, all those are part of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else about this practice? Then the last thing on my list is take care of yourself. That's the other part of retreat, is that, we're responsible for ourselves too. To make sure you drink enough water. Those of you coming from the East Coast, it's very, very dry here, as you know. Drink more water than you think you need because it's very, very dry here. Exercise. Take those walks down the hill. Take what you can do. Look long distances. Did we say people could walk up to the meadow or not? Yeah, yeah. Yeah. If your mind gets tight, walk up the meadow and look. Let your mind get really big. Think, oh, my mind is like the sky. These are just clouds coming across the sky. Really let yourself open, because a tight mind can't take this in. I know when Alan Wallace was talking about trying to help people develop shamatha, the worst thing for years, people have to just learn to relax. We are so tight as a culture in our modern life. And so that relaxation, keeping the mind open, will make it easier for us to be able to do the retreat. Yeah.
What if you start to feel like lung type symptoms? Should you talk to somebody about it, or just
Talk to
reduce
somebody about it.
mantras or something?
Yeah, you have to really think about what the lung is. Yeah, try to relax your own mind. Definitely try to walk. Try to, don't just stop because I'm feeling tight or there's a little pain in my. But try first to relax your own mind and do the long walk thing, and relax in the session. Do meditate on topics that bring you joy, and see how that goes. Take care of yourself. Remember the retreat boundary, however, and eat well. Don't decide that you need to, I don't know, lose 30 pounds during retreat. It's actually a good time for that, but you have to do it carefully. Okay, I think that's all. That's plenty. I've talked for a long time. Any other questions or concerns that might be covered under the topic of retreat orientation? Have fun. Have fun. That's where she is. If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. Is that what you're saying? If you're not having, what's your saying?
Not having fun, you ain't doing
If you're not having fun, you ain't doing it right. Have fun. It's fun. Yeah, it is joyful. And Dharma joy is, when we think about renunciation, you think, really? I'm going to give up sense pleasure? Prove to me there's something else. This is our proof. The Dharma joy that arises when we let it during our practice, that's the proof there's something else. And we can let that be the more than a carrot, the sweet roll that's guiding us, that's really guiding us to continue to practice more and more. So do have fun. If you're not having fun, then take a look at what's going on in your mind and work with that. Okay, yes.
This isn't a retreat thing, but a practical fun thing. We have these new path lights on the paths. They have bigger solar panels, so they get covered by the snow real easy. So when you're walking by, do light liberation and remove the snow off the top of the lights so that they'll work at night. Thank you.
Thank you. Safer for everybody. Oh, the other thing about taking care of yourself is slow down. Everybody that's slipping in the snow already, you're walking too fast. The snow slows us down. So use that to let that kind of crank down our energy. Okay. Good enough. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May the born have no decline, but increase forevermore.